On the touch screen, you've got the menu button at the bottom of the screen. You tap the little menu icon. You can scroll down to tools. And of course, you'll enter 4112 as the installer code, and it brings you into the programming menu. So let's say you want to use this in new construction. You have a customer that needs a local alarm. Okay. Using it as a local alarm, you can go into local alarm mode, and you can say yes to enable it. That disables the reporting and supervision of the reporting channels, so that you won't end up with troubles and, failure to communicate on the system. There's also an option on the tools to enroll a touchscreen. Okay, if you want to enroll a touchscreen and use the WPA2 encryption key, you can do that by going to wireless Wi-Fi touchscreen enrollment. It will show the SSID and the password that you need to use, and that will allow you to connect it directly to the control panel using that SSID. Of course, to do this, you have to have the Wi-Fi card in the control panel. And you also have factory default options. When you go into default options, it gives you the option to default the panel, and it does give you a confirmation, so you're not accidentally going to do this. This returns it to its out-of-the-box programming and removes everything from the system. Removes any memory of Wi-Fi connections, and removes all that. Once you're in programming, we've got some options. Okay, I'm going to go through a lot of the programming options here. One of the options that most people, if you're not familiar with Pro Series, okay, and this is your first step into Pro Series using the VISTA H3, I want to try to avoid a pitfall that others have had when they started using Pro Series for the first time. No one knew where the entry delays and exit delays were. It's because it's a partition setting. Most of the time you see partitions, you're not using partitions, you're not going to go to partitions. Why go there? It's a single partition system. Well, that's where partition settings are, okay? So once you go into partitions, okay, it'll show you the partitions that you have. Of course, panel right out of the box, only one partition, you'll just see the main. If you tap that, this is where it shows you your entry delays, your exit delays, quick arming, quick exit. All of those options are found under partition settings, okay? So if you scroll down, you've got your chime mode, force bypass. You've got all of these options. Some of them are going to be grayed out. If the options are grayed out, that means that it's more than likely a SIA setting, and you won't be able to change that. Okay. Now, if you want to add a partition, you simply hit the plus at the top of the screen, and it pops up a new partition. You can name it, do all the settings. And then if you want to delete a partition, simply check the box and then hit delete, and it does give you a confirmation, so you're not accidentally deleting a partition. Nobody wants that to happen. So enrolling the iBus devices, okay, there's two ways that you can enroll the iBus devices. You can enroll the iBus devices on AlarmNet 360, or you can enroll the iBus devices from the keypad. A lot of what I'm showing you here today, I'm really wanting to focus on the keypad programming, because I know most VISTA users, I mean, that's how most people program panels, from the keypad. So, but I do want to show you this. If you are setting up the iBus devices, and iBus is our new keypad bus, okay? Where with the VISTA 20P series type panels, we had an ECP, okay? We have an iBus here. Now, what you want to do is in the upper right-hand corner on the iBus devices page, you want to click on Add iBus device. And of course, this works in the AlarmNet 360 app as well. Okay, it'll pop up with this screen, and you click on the Learn button. When you click Learn, it connects to the panel, and it's in learning mode, and that was not a cut video. That was same speed that it normally would be. Okay, so it enrolled this module. Okay, it's a zone expansion module, and then you simply hit save, and now it's on the list. So every module that you put on the control panel, you're basically going to do add iBus module, and it's going to go out and find it. Okay. We'll talk about later ECP devices, but when you're adding an ECP device, each one of those, as usual, has to have its own address. However, the iBus devices, you're putting an iBus keypad on, a zone expander, relay module, any of those devices, there's no dip switches. You don't have to do that. You just connect it because each device has a MAC address. Now, on the keypad itself, when we go to iBus devices, okay, iBus keypads, when they're enrolled, there's two different types of keypads. There's a portrait and a landscape on the keypads. All the iBus device keypads will be enrolled during the first 15 minutes of power up. So if you're using iBus hardwired keypads, whenever you power the system up, it's actually going to go out and enroll and connect to every one of those every one of the wired keypads. Okay. Of course, there's no way to know exactly which one's going to enroll in which order. So you would need to, check with each keypad or connect one keypad at a time to know the exact order that they connected. Okay. The iBus keypad zones are going to be from 800 to 815. Okay, and that it also includes the Pro 6 wireless keypads that you may use. And then to add additional iBus keypads, we'll actually go to peripheral configuration, like enrolling a wireless device, and it will enroll the devices there. So on the programming menu, there is a scan iBus devices, or there is an iBus devices entry, and it shows you all of the devices that are enrolled here. You can do a refresh, and if you minimize this or scroll down, it'll actually show you the devices that are connected or that are not yet enrolled as well. Okay, so to do the enrollment, you'll go to peripherals, okay, and you'll hit the add button like you're adding a zone. For those of you that haven't seen that yet, we'll show it in a future screen here in just a little bit, but there's a plus the top right corner. Once it's in pairing mode, it actually goes out, scans, and automatically finds the first iBus device, and it enrolls it into the system. Here we enrolled a zone expander. Shows the serial number of the expander, the zone number that it assigned it to for supervision. Okay. And the first zone on that module will be automatically added at the first available zone after zone 8. So if you put any zones on the system except 1 through 8, or even if you're not using 1 through 8, it will go to zone 9 and put the first module, and that your next 7 zones will be after that. If you had a few wireless devices already or other hardwired expanders, it's going to go to the next available zone and automatically populate those zones for you. Okay. When you enroll an iBus relay module, that will start at zone 301. Okay. And that's for, the relay itself. We'll talk about relay assignment and where we're calling it a zone and an output synonymously here. Okay. There's a really cool option in here for 4-wire smoke reset. Okay. If you go to any output zone, okay, those start at 300 or 301. Those are your triggers. 302 would be your first relay. When you go to those options, you can change an option in programming there and tell it that it is a fire reset. When you do that, it's going to disable remote control from Total Connect, disable remote control from the touchscreen of that device, and it's automatically going to configure in the background programming for smoke reset, 4-wire smoke reset. Okay. When you connect an iBus ECP takeover module to the system, it will be enrolled as an iBus device. It will be in the 600s. And then the ECP, each device connected to it, you'll do enroll iBus device again, and it will enroll the devices connected to it. Okay. Each one has to have its own address. Devices that you can put on there, 4219 or a 4229. If you are using a 4229 during the enrollment process, you need to tell it that you're using the two relays. You can also use a 4204 or 4204 CF relay module there. And of course, first zone starts after 301 for your first relay output on that device. Now, going a little further to the Vplex converter. When you're enrolling a Vplex converter, again, it does enroll using the learn mode for adding a peripheral. Okay. And when you, of course, this only works for serial mode devices. So you need to make sure that each device has a dip switch set to a specific serial number group. Okay. If you have a dip switch mode device, that device will either need to be switched over to serial mode or replaced with a serial type device. Once you've added the module to the system, all of your zones are going to be added manually from the peripherals page here. You'll tap add manually to add that, and we'll see specifically how to do that later. This is something that I want you to take note of, especially later when we go over those screens, because unless there's been an update to the manual, I'm not sure that you're going to find that in the manual yet. So that's one of the reasons that I really wanted to do this and make sure you saw that. So I'm not going to read all these and tell you what they are, but this is for reference. So you know when you get a zone reporting from a VISTA H3 panel, you can use this for reference, and this came directly out of the installation manual. You'll be able to know that if you get a zone 308, that it happens to be a relay module or a relay that has an issue. Now, programming wireless, okay? So to configure a wireless, Pro 6 wireless into the system, you're going to go to peripherals. You're going to hit this little plus button. This is the plus I was talking about earlier when you're going to the learning mode for iBus devices. It's all the same place. You hit plus. You are now in peripheral pairing mode. Okay, at this point, you can activate a takeover wireless device. Okay, fault and restore it a couple of times to enroll the serial number. Or if it's a Pro 6 wireless device, pull the battery tab or activate it. LED is going to flash for at least 8 seconds, and then it will be enrolled. Okay. When it's enrolled, it will tell you, it'll switch to the next screen automatically. It will tell you what the device is. If it's a Pro 6 wireless, if it's takeover wireless, it'll just say takeover wireless. It'll show you the serial number for takeover wireless, give you your partition options, the response time. It's going to give you the option for adding a service. Okay, so service was basically when you're using a second input on a device. So let's say a 5816. If you're using the screw terminals and you're using the reed switch, that would be a second device. Okay, second zone is how that would be configured. With Pro 6 wireless on a Pro 6 CT, you see here, the service is set for read that was automatically enrolled. If we hit add, it would actually go to the next zone, and we would now be configuring zone 18 as the terminals. So when you're done with this, you can hit save or save and complete. Save and add another. Now the onboard zones. When you're in peripheral configuration, you will have a list of zones there, and the options for zones 1 through 8, we're going to show you here, and we'll discuss the options for that. They can be end of line resistor, normally open, normally closed, zone doubling, or double balanced. Okay. If you're setting a zone up as a fire zone, that zone will have to be we'll have to use the 2K ohm end of line resistor. However, if you're using end of line resistor and it's not a fire zone, at that point, you can either tap manual entry and enter the value of the resistor you're using, or you can tap scan And as long as it sees the resistor in a complete path, it will automatically populate what the resistor value is for you. Okay. All the rest of the zone settings are identical on this. So configure your zone settings, tap save when you're done. The next option here, so we're under peripheral configuration for, showing you all of the zones here, 14, 15, 16, 17, okay? In these zones, you see the MAC address. The MAC address shown here is for the iBus zone expander, the VISTA HEXP HW, okay? If you're looking at your list of zones and you see the MAC is a single-digit number or a two-digit number, that's the ECP address of that device, okay? Now on AlarmNet 360, we will call these, there's a couple of new terms that you'll see. ZIM terminal means it's an iBus expander, and ZIM ECP terminal means it's on a 4219 expander, okay? ZIM basically stands for Zone Expansion Module. Okay, any of these zones you want to edit, just tap the zone. And when you tap the zone, it brings up this screen and allows you to, make any changes to that zone that you need to. Okay. If it's a 4219 or a 4229 or even a Vplex zone, the input type has to be end of line resistor. Okay. You can't change that. However, if it's on our zone expander, the new iBus zone expander, you can actually change the resistor value just like you could on a the hardwired zones. You can also set it for zone doubling on the zone expander, or double balanced, or normally open, or normally closed. Okay, we have the same options on our zone expander as we do on the main board. So now, I mentioned earlier on the Vplex zone expansion that you had to add these manually. And I do want to make a second note to that. This is the only step currently that you can't do on AlarmNet 360 or AlarmNet 360 app. If you're doing Vplex zones currently, this is going to change, but currently you have to add them manually at the panel, okay? So when you're in this Add Peripheral section here to learn a new device, you will tap Add Manually, okay? When it comes up with this screen, you will tap Vplex Zone Module. Okay, any of your Vplex Zone modules are going to be listed here, and this is a zone module that it's an 8-zone expander. Okay, it's a 4208U. So it knows what it knows that it's an 8-zone module. So you'll tap that. Then you will tap serial number. You need to delete the A and put in the 7-digit serial number and then hit save. And at this point, you can go through and configure the rest of your options. And of course, on an 8-zone expander for Vplex, the service input will always be left loop. And if you want to add additional zones, which I'm sure you're probably using more than one on that 8-zone expander, you simply hit add and it goes to the next option for that. Okay. Actually, I'm going to back up and correct that. The add option here is if you're using one of the 2-zone modules that has the same serial number, such as a 4190SN or a 4193SN. For the 8-zone module, you'll actually just put the serial number in for the next zone by going back through the same process here. Add manually, Vplex converter module, tap serial number, put in your serial number, okay, and save when your options are complete there. Now there's another option on the program menu that's called panic alarms. Okay, the reason we have the option for panic alarms here is we give you the option to disable the fire, medical, police, or silent alarm panics. Okay. With the older VISTA panels, we would always go to zone 99 or 95 or 995, 999 to disable those zones or disable those panics. However, in this panel, we go to panic alarms and then we turn those off at this screen. Why might you want to turn them off? Maybe you're installing this in a state that doesn't allow a commercial system, a commercial bird system, to have a fire or medical panic. If that's the case, you can disable the 995 and 996, and now none of the keypads, fire or medical panics, will be visible, or they won't activate. For the landscape and the portrait keypads with buttons, the fire and medical are of course printed on the plastic. However, the buttons themselves will not be functional. All right, going into the communicator settings, or going into advanced settings to talk about the communicator and system settings. Okay, so we go into advanced settings and we can tap communicator. Here you'll see you've got the communicator path, the Wi-Fi and cell fault times, or Ethernet fault time if you're using Ethernet, DHCP or static IP address options, alarm report delay, which is your bird dialer delay. Okay, that's how we know that. You also have your time zone offset and options for daylight savings time, language, and Bluetooth pairing or Bluetooth disarming if you want to enable or disable that option. Okay. So one other option on here that I want to mention, and that's require PIN to view cameras. If this has been being installed in a residential setting, requiring a code to view the cameras is probably not the most convenient thing. So you probably want to talk to your customer and see if they want to restrict camera viewing, or if they want to be able to view the cameras from the keypads without having to enter a code. If it's a commercial setting, requiring a code to view the cameras might be a great option there, but still talk with your customer to find out which is best for them. Okay, as if we continue down the list, we see that we've got our Berg and fire bell timeouts. We have swinger suppression, and we have an option for customer type. Okay, customer type changes. This is an option that's set when you initially set up the panel in AlarmNet 360, but you also have the option here. If you change this to a commercial panel type, what this does is it gets rid of the home button and the stay button. I mean, the home button on Total Connect and the home button on the keypad, and changes it to a stay button. A lot of people gave us feedback with the All-in-One Pro Series panel that, why are you putting a home security system in a commercial business by having the home button there? So this is something that, by changing it to commercial, it changes the appearance of that button in both places so that it doesn't say home. Okay, and you also have a panel sync time delay here, report frequency. Of course, report frequency is your test report. How often do you want it to send? Daily, weekly, or monthly? And then you've got the panel sync time delay. I'd mentioned that it auto syncs programming for you. It does this every 3 minutes. You can change that here. One of the things that's really important about that is when you go into programming on this panel, you want to make sure that you're only in programming in one location. Okay, if we think about the AlarmNet 360 account overview page, if you ever sit on that page and watch it with a Pro Series or VISTA H3 panel, you'll notice that it syncs about every 3 minutes. The page refreshes. It's actually communicating with the panel and making sure that changes haven't been made, or if you had made changes there and it needs to send them to the panel. Okay, if you're in programming, or if you're on that account overview page, you're essentially in programming. And if you're going through and you're enrolling multiple devices from the keypad or from the AlarmNet 360 app, you may end up losing, because the account overview page just refreshed, you may end up losing a couple of the zones that you enrolled and be required to re-enroll those. Okay, so it's important to only be in programming at one time, at one place at one time. So just don't don't hang out on the account overview page is the best thing to say there. Now, if we scroll down on this section, we've got the option for reporter, and this shows us where all of our reports are enabled or disabled. Some of the reports are enabled. The ones that are marked with an asterisk, they're enabled because they are a SIA feature, and those can't be disabled. However, any of the others can be disabled and not send, such as away, stay, and disarm. Most of the time, you're not sending that for systems, so come in here and turn those off. And you can do that in a template, kind of like your cheat sheet, where you don't have to do that every time. Okay. Getting close to the end of the programming section here, want to talk about Z-Wave management or Z-Wave devices. Okay. To include Z-Wave devices, of course, we can go into inclusion mode. And in inclusion mode, it stays here while you're including all of your devices. So you can go through and include multiple devices. Remember the order that you include them, so you can go back and give them a name. Okay. You've got the option for exclusion mode to remove a device. When you go into inclusion mode, it does not stay here. Okay. It excludes one device and then goes back to the main screen because we don't want the risk of excluding multiple devices or the wrong device. Okay. And the next thing that we want to talk about is automation rules. This is your relay programming. Okay. For the relay programming, we go to automation rules. I don't know if you caught it that I said it earlier, but with relays and the VISTA H3, you can control these from Total Connect. We've never been able to do that before. We have the option here to do that. So when you go into automation rules, you're going to hit the plus button to create a new rule. And at that point, we'll go down the screen basically and show you what each one of these options can be. So you can give it a name, of course, give it an easy name to recognize. You know what that relay is doing. Maybe it's an armed LED, maybe it's a garage door relay, a gate relay, multiple different things it could be. So give it a name, and then you select a trigger type. Okay. One of the trigger types can be zone type. So zone type could be an 04 interior follower. Of course, you're not going to see the 04 here because it's different programming now, but maybe you'll see perimeter. If any of the zones programmed into the system, such as entry exit 1, if any entry exit one gets faulted, then it's going to activate this relay or cause the action of the relay. Okay. You also have the option for activating or triggering a relay by zone number. Okay, so if I put zone number 6 in here, and then I selected a fault, anytime zone 6 faulted, it's going to cause the action to happen on that relay. Okay, one thing to remember is when you're using zone type and zone number, or even the next option we're going to talk about, system event, when you're turning a relay on, setting it to closed, you also have to have another action to turn it back off. Okay, because each one, just like on a VISTA 20p, it required two lines of program basically for to turn on and off a relay. That's the same way here, unless you're turning on for duration or on for 2 seconds. Now your next trigger type would be system event. And this is a list of all the different system events you have. Maybe you've got a relay that you're turning on for an extra sounder. Okay. For that, you could choose any burg alarm, and at any burg alarm would turn the relay on, your action. And then you could program another line of code that, another automation rule that says bell timeout, and that would turn the relay off. And of course, we know that with bell timeout, disarming or bell timeout would create that trigger. Now, after we've selected our top options, we need to select the output number. And this is where that zone number comes into play. Okay. The output zone number, 300 is trigger 1, 301 is trigger 2, 302 to 364 are your relays. Okay, so your first relay that you've added to the panel, whether it's a 4204 or a iBus relay module, that would be 302. Okay, so you would put that output number in there, and we'll come back to that note, and then you would select the option. Okay, if it's set to open, that's an off. If it's set to close, that's an on. Device closed for 2 seconds, that's on for 2 seconds. 1 second toggle on and off, that's for basically what it says, an on off until it gets a command to stop. And then you've got device duration anywhere from 15 seconds to 5,400 seconds. Okay, now if when setting up one of your outputs, let's say trigger number 2, if you were using that for smoke reset, okay, if you went into zone 301 and you told it in 301 that it is a fire reset option, if you turn that fire reset option on, it would automatically in the background program that output to do a fire reset. But what it's going to do is it's going to eliminate it from the list of options to be chosen here. So if you ever have an output number that won't show up, maybe it had been turned on for the fire option. Now the voltage trigger harness, you can still use the 5-pin ECP harness on the board, or you can use the 4140 or the 4120 TR cable as pictured here. Okay, these triggers are floating triggers and they pull to ground when they're activated. Okay, and they provide 20 milliamps of current. Okay, and the 12-volt pin here is identical to the auxiliary power terminals on the board. Each of the auxiliary power terminals are the same, so it's all included in the same 950 milliamps.
Thank you for attending Tech Talk with Troy today. We hope you found the session enlightening, and we look forward to you implementing these practices in your business. Keep an eye on your inbox for our next session's invite, and here's to your continued success.